Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to the channel. As always, August is over, therefore here comes an August monthly recap coming at you guys. So let's jump right in. $92,000 on the month, my best August of my career. Not my best month of my career, right? But my best August. And again, I think I mentioned this in July. I know I've mentioned it plenty of times on Wine Wednesday, and I pretty much let the whole world, anyone who's watched any significant amount of my videos has already heard me say this, but August has never been a good month for me. The last few years have always been on the lower end of that year. However, not this year. This year is somewhere in the middle, right? And I'm actually proud to say that. I just finished making a video lesson for four-leaf clovers, and I would pretty much was in short was saying, this month, or this year, I should say, has typically been higher range months, right? Obviously, we have my May when I took a huge loss in FFIE, but other than that, all of my profitable months have been in this high five figures into six-figure range. Usually when I have a really crappy month, that's still profitable, but just whether it be I took a big loss, whether there's less opportunity, whatever it may be, it's in the 10, 20, 30, 40K range of profits, which again is still great, but when I'm comparing it to how well my months have been or can be, this year has been just really good, and that the lower end is in the 70, 80, 90 range. So that's really awesome to see that. That's like my, quote unquote, new low, new lower range of profitability. Let's say it doesn't mean it can't go back to 10, 20K. Of course it can. But just cool to see that in a month like August, where I'm not usually that great, is coming in around 90K. Now, I will say, if those were on my Twitter, I tweeted on the 20th of August saying, like, I'm on track for my first six-figure month. And, should I quit? Should I stop? Right? Should I give it a break and just come back in September? And most people said keep going, right? Most people said just keep trading, which again, I honestly, before I even say any further, I asked that question just to see what people thought. The reality is, you guys know me, I'm not stopping trading. Like if my hand's hot, if I was having a good August, which I was, it's never popped in my mind to be like, oh yeah, you're having a good trading time, like let's stop while we're up. That's never been the case. Like if you have a hot hand, keep hitting it and keep playing it. If you have a really cold hand, then yeah, that's when you maybe downsize, you trade less, you take some time off. So it's just funny though that now in hindsight, looking back, that on the 20th like was the peak, right? Since then, and we'll go into the trades, I've pretty much been break even, if not just kind of chopped myself up a little bit. And unfortunately, the last day of the month, which we'll talk about these trades, took a hit, and now I'm pretty much from the 20th till now, I'm down almost exactly like 12 grand, like literally this amount of much. So did not pull away with a six-figure August. Boo-hoo, poor me, right? Woe is me. It doesn't really matter. It's all just psychological games of will it be six figures, will it be not? It doesn't matter. The reality is it's still the best August of my career. Overall, pretty happy with the stats here. Risk reward, not great on the win and loss side. But again, I do have a few, I think, again, this is always averages, so there's always a few wins that are really, really small that bring this average down. Average loss, though, is typically, in the 4K range. That's about right. But anyways, let's get right to it. Let's jump right into the trades. We have a lot of trades this month, so I'll try to get through them as fast as I can. Again, we're not going to go through all of them. We're going to go through the main ones, but there's just a lot of main ones. So first one is ARM. You look at a chart like this and you see enough of my videos, you'd be like, Kyle, why on earth are you trading this thing? Essentially the carry trade. And I'm not going to go into detail about the carry trade. That would add another 10, 15 minutes into this video. But nonetheless, this being ARM in the AI tech space, along with the overall markets getting incredibly sold off, coming into, I think it was the Monday morning, of the 5th, everyone was bearish. Like the fear was at maximum capacity right there. And when fear is at maximum capacity, it's usually the time when sellers have run out and now all that's left is buyers. And so that's kind of why I ended up flipping long on this day. We don't even have to go to the intraday. We'll just show you the chart here. ARM out the open pretty quickly here once it started making some like new minute highs. I wasn't looking for like a 5-minute high or 3-minute high. Just once I realized that a ton of volume came in off the first minute candle and then immediately started trying to bounce, I decided to join the trend long and then sold it into the uptrend. Yes, it did go a little bit higher, and now honestly, it's funny, even hindsight, months later, it's a whole $20 a share higher. But I was just looking for that quick bounce on that day. Made $7 grand. So not your typical trade. I don't know. This isn't like a setup of mine. I wouldn't call it a panic dip buy. It was just one of those scenarios that where like overall market dynamics played a role, and I felt like I had a decent enough read on the kind of the difference between the greed and fear, and that maximum fear was in, and so by that point, so was probably the bottom. And again, and I think almost every stock, major large cap stock that is bottom that day is still up above that day. So just was a really cool capitulation event that offered a really good balance long term, not just on the intraday level. So there was that one. Next up is one of my bigger gains, not the biggest, but I think the second biggest, is SAVA. Again, I'm pretty sure you already know what day I'm going to talk about here. It's this red day on the 6th. Fairly choppy front side. It doesn't really respect red green too much. Pulled back at like almost 10%. I think this day and this day only to come back. Gap down, only to squeeze out. However, on the backside, it actually respected red green a little bit better than I would have thought, which I'll talk about in these next two trades. But essentially, I really love that it gapped up into this range, this day's range. Like again, if we just go into, let's go like a month back. Yeah, we'll still got these trades or the intraday. All right, I like that it kind of had this blow off parabolic. Let's get rid of these random lines. I don't know why that is there. There we go. Love that it went parabolic. I think this huge pullback from 42 down to 34 was kind of the first sign, right? Could have totally have gapped up and continued, yes, but this was probably the hardest crack we had seen thus far, right? A lot of people thought these gap downs and sell-offs the last 2 days were enough, but now when you look in comparison, I mean, this sell-off was just so much bigger and going to be so much harder to recover than these two initial the days prior, or the mornings prior, I should say. And so coming into today, when we gapped up, I mean, right into like the 38 level, which is not much, but it tried to bounce for a few minutes. You can really slightly see it, and then to die. That was enough for me that the fact that it couldn't even have 1 minute spiking and immediately dying, that was, it was game on time. That was the kind of the AK or the AOK go for it. So if we get rid of the arm trade, yeah, SAVA. You immediately see me start to short once it makes new low a day below that morning spike pop. I remember, I think this was on SSR. It had to have been with the gap down the day prior because I remember struggling to fill here, but did end up getting most of my size that I wanted. Covered into the first dip. Once it spiked, it held red-green perfectly. That was, I think, enough confirmation for me to add back what I covered. In hindsight, it makes me think I should have added more. But again, I did not know in this moment that it was going to hold red-green that perfectly. Again, given what we saw on the front side on the way up, it didn't. It's only now in hindsight when you look back, it's like, oh wow, it respected it really well on the backside. Look at why I mentioned that. But in the moment, I was like, let me just add back what I covered. There's still a world where this could, try to pop back to 36 and then fail. So I didn't move my risk down here. Otherwise, if I had, I would have added more, but I didn't. Again, it is what it is. It's hindsight. But it just held really well because now it led to the next panic, covered some more. Once this bounced here though, I did start getting a little antsy of thinking like, should I have covered all my hold size there? But it's a respected VWAP, held under it. So I said, okay, let's just stay patient. One more pull, which is sick. Then I covered it all. My main goal was like sub 30 into like 29, 28. So when we got there, I took it. Yes, there ended up being one more pull, but I took the meat of the move, took the main portion of it, locked in 18K. And that was that. So really, really good red day. Very happy with that overall. The next trade though is on the next day. All right, if we actually look at that, it's that trade right there. Yeah. Excited for like day 2. Some of these first red days do lead to second red days. And so I did start in, on the front side of this morning spike, not knowing if red green would hold. But again, I had suspicions because it held nicely after that reject in the morning prior. But even then, I was still looking to risk like this 31 level. Like clearly there's a lot of tops in the afternoon, like high 30s to maybe like 31.20, 31.30 here, this little pop, worst case. Thankfully, it held red green perfectly again at like 30.50. And then failed. So then you do see me adding more back on the second to last two candles. Once again, thought I had my finger on the trigger here. Thought I was going to like spike right through red green. So I almost covered. Thankfully, I didn't. I stuck to my risk. And then we got another pull, and I covered the rest there. And I believe this was into either earnings or there was some kind of conference call. There was something that that led up into this, so it spiked back. So I'm really grateful and thankful that I didn't overstay. I just took the move from if the lower day yesterday was like 28, 29. Or no, it was lower than that. 27. that if we're going to make a new low below that, sub 27, I'm going to take it. That's why you see those covers there. I'm not looking to overstay too much further than that. Again, the second red days typically don't have as much range as the first red days, so I knew that going in. So locked in another 8K on that one. So, between these two trades, already up 26K on just SAVA, which was great. Again, that really is a big contributor to this week, being the biggest week of the month. But what else? There's also Lumen. Lumen had a lot of trades on Lumen. Ironically, though, I didn't actually make much money from Lumen, to be honest. I will go over the biggest trade of it, which is obviously also the first red day. But between all of the other trades I took in between, I think I'm up or down $1,000 or $2,000 on this thing. Unfortunately, I just kind of over traded it beyond what I thought was most predictable. And then that just led to me taking, 3, 4, 5K losses. And I took, 3, 4, 5 of them. And it cuts out the 15, 16K win that I had on this first red day, unfortunately. So the first real loss that I took, and let's hope it shows. I think it should, was that huge parabolic in after hours. I know a lot of people traded this because it was quite choppy, quite crowded. Yeah, right here. So I remember I think I took a small loss on this parabolic. I did short a little bit up here, then it got stopped out only for it to fade. But I lost 2 or 3K. It wasn't a big deal. Actually, no, maybe 1 or 2K. Very small. This is where I ended up losing about $5,500. I did get short up into this kind of upper move, so I did time it well. But again, unfortunately, it was just super choppy back and forth. Couldn't make a decision. Thought it was going to, and then one more stuff. I know a lot of people, including myself, stopped out here. And then that was the end of it. Most short sellers were out by that point. And then you got the fade I was actually looking for originally. I thought this fade was going to happen here. Again, it just didn't. Again, like I said, super crowded. This crowded kind of move makes sense. Part of me thinks I should have given it more wiggle room because that can happen. But again, I hate doing that in parabolics because during the spike in real time, what's stopping this to go to 10, 11, right? I don't have that information. I don't think most people do. And so I'm not upset with cutting. I think maybe after that, though, I should have thought about reshorting one more time. But either way, I lost money on it, right? Yeah, here's my screenshot. I didn't even screenshot the fade because I hadn't even seen it yet, but I'd given up on it for now. And again, this is after I was wanting to go enjoy my day outside of the regular trading hours. So did lose 5K there. Okay. However, the next day, didn't actually trade it this day. I kind of wish I did because there is, I think once it's at a stuff and then 2 significant lower highs, you could have got short anywhere in the, high 6s, low 7s range for a nice, $1 a share. However, I kind of went into today, knowing how choppy it had been on the way up and knowing how choppy it was in after hours, I pretty much took the default that today was going to be too choppy to make it worth my while. Now, that is somewhat true. This was just as choppy as I expected it to be. It just also had more range than I thought. So again, I'm not upset I didn't trade it. Do I wish maybe I could have taken $1 share and ran? Yes. But again, this action is kind of what I expected, just staying in some kind of range, and anyone who would overtraded it probably lost money because it's just a pain in the butt. However, it did set what I call a red candle, right? It didn't clearly make above any of these highs from the morning, was closing well under 7. And so I actually took a starter position overnight, right? If we just go back to the daily chart, we've seen this trend quite frequently in the last year or two where the top day is not a red day, it's a red candle, but it's it shows indecisiveness, right? It shows there's not much strength. Yes, sometimes some runs and some stocks do go higher, but a lot of times that is the beginning of the end. And whether longs are fighting for it to go higher, that's why it's choppy. For whether shorts think it should be going red or it's the first red day when it's not. That's kind of also why I thought it was going to be super choppy. Just because it had that indecisiveness, like shorts and longs didn't know which way it was going to go. But usually, eventually, the next day is when the bottom falls out from underneath it. So that's why I did take a short position overnight. I just had one little entry for a starter. You can see that right here. Held it overnight, and then into the next morning, added most of my size, or the rest of my size, I should say. And in the open, when it went red, and then actually held... it should say held red green. It went over by a few cents, but it held the day high, which is exactly what I wanted to see. Had it spiked back, I would have had to cover some because these ads were a little bit aggressive. But again, faded beautifully. I covered a little bit early, right? My average cover was at the 550-ish. Did actually go below 5. However, when you look at the reason why I picked the high or I guess low fives, mid fives, is because I was thinking this was going to be support right here at like 520 best case. So I thought somewhere between 550 and 5. Again, I ended up covering, just being a little bit skittish at around 550. Shoulda, coulda, woulda waited till 5. It wouldn't have made a huge difference. Again, I made 16K on this overall red day in general. But again, the next day, I think I tried shorting it again for a second red day. Obviously, that didn't work, right? I think I got short into this move here, only to get stopped out. I think I tried another time. I missed this day, and then because I missed this day, I said, okay, let's see if it fades again. It did the same thing, right? It did red day, green day, red day, green day, and I was on the opposite side of that pattern. So again, that 16K between 16K profit, but 5K loss here. I think I lost 4K here, 3K there, and then give or take another loss somewhere. It's like I just gave it all back, like I said. So a bit unfortunate. It sucks, but it is what it is. It's just one of those tickers that I look back on and think I should have made money, but I just didn't, unfortunately. Still glad though I made the 16 grand. Like obviously, if I didn't make the 16 grand, I still would have had the choppy, singles up or down, and would have actually been a loss. So I'm glad I made 16 grand just to at least be break even on something like this. Haven't touched it since. It's been very choppy and very little range. So, and probably won't. So there's that one. What else? Going into week 2 now, gap and crappers were a very, very significant portion of my August here. APLM being a very good example of one of them. Just a huge fader, and I didn't know it was going to give back this much. But I was more aggressive on this one, and I say that very lightly because I would say 95% of gap and craps, I really have no read. I just try to trust the fact that most of them fade. This one, however, I had a feeling, right? I had the 5% of the time, I was like, this one's such a piece of crap that, like, I think this one gets clobbered. Did I think it was going to get clobbered as much as it did? No. But I was more aggressive in terms of sizing. If we look at it here, right, I was already getting short pre-market, which I rarely ever do. And then I was also getting short out of the open, which I also rarely ever do. I usually give it a few minutes to just let the dust settle. But this one, I don't know what it was. Maybe I forget if it was, I know they had dilutive qualities, but I don't remember exactly what got me to say, because plenty of them have dilutive qualities, but still, can give you hell. But yeah, something about it. I maybe I should have gone back and reviewed this one a little bit more, but I got short. Never to see those prices again, and just beautifully faded and went literally red. So I locked in like 12K there. This is one of the bigger trades I've made on gap and craps, right? Most gap and craps are not big wins for me. I haven't made like 20, 30 grand gap and crap day. Like it's probably never going to happen, but anything close to or over 10 is fairly big when it comes to this setup for me. So locked in 12K here. That was awesome. Also made 6K on LBT, another gap and crapper. Again, I think it was a little bit late out here. Like the open was 80. I didn't short till like 70. So a little bit of a chase. Did have to ride through some chop, but eventually it failed and faded. Covered, relatively into the last, half an hour into the close here, into about the mid 40s. Locked in 6K there as well. And just to show the daily chart, right? If that's there, ALBT. Yeah, another one. And I think I didn't have more size in this one like ALPM, but I did feel confident about this one working because it just got into all this resistance from the previous run. And typically, if they're not super strong, they're not going to get past their first run. So there's that. On to week 3 though, that was pretty quick. Again, week 2 didn't have much, right? ALPM was literally it practically, and there wasn't much else I really remember, or that was significant, I should say. Week 3 here though. Was the second best week. And so a lot happened this week. Like I said, this was with a pivotal point from when everything was really easy to then when everything went really hard, right? This 21st and 22nd of the week was brutal, guys. It was one of those days where you like scratch and claw and fight all day long just to end up red. Because I think both these days I immediately started off the day, like within the first 30 minutes, like down 15, 20 grand, like just immediately. One of those days where you get nothing right and you're just down. Now, 21st, I was able to recover significantly. 22nd, I was not. I finished that. That's the worst red day of the month. So we'll get into that. But what happened on the first couple of days? 19th was my biggest gain. So this 26,500, that was from APDN. And that was a long it took from overnight on the 16th into the 19th. If you look at the daily chart, yeah, this day, right, took it long around. I think I had ended up having like a 67 average. Ended up selling it all at like 150-ish pre-market, but it would almost touch 3. It was crazy. But essentially the reasoning behind it was the World Health Organization had already kind of made it very clear that they were watching and worried about monkeypox. They put out some PR. I forget what exactly the PR said. But it sat there for like 2 or 3 days, and none of these monkeypox related stocks moved. APDN, GOVX. GOVX was the leader. It did up. GOVX, if we just look up the ticker real quick so you guys see, it did uptick for like 3 or 4 days, but it wasn't until that Friday the 16th that this sector actually got attention, right? Like this was the 16th. And so it creeped up, but it wasn't, and the interest in the volume didn't come until the 16th. So once that was happening, I said, okay, let's look for a sympathy. Saw APDN up, like this intraday. Did end up getting long around here in the low 70s, stopped out, saw it hold 60, which actually was my original thought process of where it would hold, but I added much too early and then had to stop out. So I did rebuy at like 67, like I said, sold some in after hours like 91, and then held the rest overnight. The gap up was way beyond my expectations. I thought maybe if we gap up to like 110, 120, I'll take it, let alone over 2. Now, unfortunately, I didn't wake up and wasn't able to even sell anyways till like 150s. So that's where I sold. Now, obviously, in hindsight, it looks much better to have held, but I don't know if I would have held at this chop. I don't think I would have held it through it all, right? That the whole point with me was to catch a gap up in pre-market. And so that's what I did. I sold at 150, made way more than I thought I would have. 26 grand, coulda, shoulda, would have been 50, 60 grand, right? Ideally, if I had a whole different plan of selling into some rip. Or maybe if I was able to sell earlier and after or in pre-market up in the high ones, but it doesn't matter. It was a much better gain just in general, what my trend or what my trade plan accounted for. So that was sick. Now, I guess I'll skip ahead a little bit. The one aspect on the 22nd here was essentially me giving back all of that APDN profit. So what on earth happened there? If we go later in the month, right? So it had the run, it pulled back, but then right here, the sector ramped back. And it ramped back on the fact, and this was right into the close, by the way, that there was a first case of monkeypox in the U.S. I looked into that news too deeply. I weighed it too much because once I heard that, I thought to myself, that's like really bad. It's not that bad, right? No one's freaking out and losing their minds. But I just thought to myself, for it to then be in Africa, be a concern, and then the headlines now it's in the U.S., I thought there'd be a little bit more weight to that. Like I said, I thought there'd be a little bit more bigger reaction. I thought these were all going to gap up huge. And again, by after hours look, that's what they did, right? I mean, GOVX as well, right? If we go into it, GOVX, APDN, VRAX, all of them looked really good into after hours, right? All of these were gapping up, indicating a gap up, right? Right, closed up in here in the 8s, was already up in the 9s. Same thing with APDN, that was already up in the 2s from closing in the low 2s. Everything thought to myself, these were going to gap up. Unfortunately, VRAX, being another one that I also took long overnight, announced an offering, and not just an offering in after hours, but like after hours. Like after hours closed, and then they released an offering, and that really killed the sector. It really killed the momentum. If we go into the intraday here, literally opened up much lower, which really sucked because, again, of course, that affects GOVX. Of course, that affects APDN. And so naturally, I'm long all of them. And so I take a 6 loss on VRAX. I take a 9K loss on APDN. I take a 4K loss on GOVX. Like, before you know it, but again, not even to start the day, like literally pre-market, when the pre-market starts, I'm taking these losses and I'm already starting down, 15, 18 grand of the day. So that wasn't great. Obviously, there was nothing to help me, recover from that. Again, not a big deal. It just sucks because I still wonder what if VRAX didn't do an offering, how good would have these moved? And I have no idea. I can't say I would have made money, but at least if they gapped down, they certainly would have gapped down as big as they did, right? It would have taken lesser losses, but again, it's all another scenario that never would have played out because that's just not how history played out or real time played out. But it happened. So that was another dent to the month, just unfortunately getting caught in that offering and that much exposure of the sector overnight. But another good win was also ALZN. So this one I'd call a gap and crap, although it certainly didn't look that way to start. Had a huge squeeze, which I'm thankful I avoided. This is a perfect example of why I typically don't like shorting out the open, because stuff like this will just run you over. Again, they don't always do this, but when they do this, it's like, oh my gosh, this is just scary. I'm really glad I waited. And frankly, I was just waiting for a really significant lower low. Like, I just wanted to wait till some kind of trend stopped. And I almost shorted here, guys. when this like wicked down, I almost thought that was going to break low a day and me short, but it held almost perfectly like a double bottom. And I think some other shorts maybe got interested as well, because I was close, and I'm sure other short sellers did the same thing, but actually got in. And then that's what led to the huge rip. And so then at that point, I was just waiting for just another significant break. And then you can see it just held up, and then you start trying to see it hold up, and then it falls over. I get short somewhere in here. And then I was worried that this holding was going to come back and then stop me out. Whatever happened here, I don't know, but that obviously was a huge trend shift, and then the immense fade happened, and so much bigger than expected. Ended up making like 9K on this, if you look at the trades. So, all right, here's APDN, right? Took it long, took a loss, and then relonged, sold it in the 150s. Yeah, here's ALZN. Beautiful, beautiful fade. So pretty much short from like 13 and like cover at 6. I mean, like a whole 50+% fade. Very, very big, very, very awesome. Made $9,000. Did not expect it. Like I said, I frankly thought we were going to chop at most, but again, I usually don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, I don't have a good read on gap bar graphs. I just trust the odds on them. And yeah, it worked great. So that was a really good 9K win there. Also Riley parabolic for the next one. We'll do our Riley here. Forget, they have like some buyout news or some kind of positive news, but obviously it doesn't matter. It's right back down to its prices, but it did spike off that. If you go in, and it spiked hard enough to be a parabolic in my eyes. And so if we pull it up, I did start getting short. I think I took a small loss. Let's look at the trades there. Yeah, did take a small loss to start it. But then quickly reshorted it once I think it put that top right into 9, and then just was really patient about it. Unfortunately, I did cover the rest into this midday chop. Once it kind of looked like it was going to get back on review app, but I did get most of my covers kind of in this weakness, which is great. Ended up making 7K on this one, so that was great, even after the loss. So that was really, really good. But what else? Because that was on, when was this on? This was on the 21st? Yeah, that was this day, which is what recovered my, like I said, 22nd, the whole monkeypox sector crushed me. There was no returning, no coming back from that. The 21st was only $2,000. However, I was down quite a lot, and Riley was one of those trades that helped me recover because the losses that started off right away was RR. I think we did live trading on the Clover channel on that Wednesday, and I was looking for a first red day here, having 4 green days from now, 50 to like 150. Yes, it did just spike back to where it was previously, but I thought there was so much volume at lower prices, especially after this big dump day and this volume at these lower ends of the range, that this still should have had a decent pullback. And yeah, it kind of has, but it's really still in the mid ones. It wasn't great. I traded it pretty poorly on top of it being a pretty poor trader. So in general, I lost too much. I lost more than I wanted to. Arguably, maybe I risked more than I should have. I thought this would have played out a little bit better than it did, so I was willing to lose up to $10,000. Unfortunately, I lost 16, but either way, when I look back, I don't know if I would have traded it differently, and I definitely still would have taken it. I think the best thing I could have done was like, hey, this isn't as ideal as it could have been or should have been, or that I thought. Like, you should have sized down. Something losing like 6 or 8K would have been more appropriate, I think. But essentially, you see what happens. Like, it looks weak and then just ricochets back and stops everybody out who was risking a high day, which was me. We can see that here, right? I get short, I short some, it holds up for a bit, pops, I cover some, I reshort some, then stop out, reshort again, stop out again. So I was like, between all these 3 here, I lost like, 6K each, 5 or 6K each. So I'm down like 16, 17 grand. Did reshort when it looked weak, but again, I reshorted such small size. I think I made $1,000 max back between this right here. So again, still lost 16 grand on the trade. Again, more than I should have kept it under 10, like I told myself I would. But either way, it's not a huge detriment. It's just one of those ones that's annoying when I look back on it, because it just doesn't. I mean, this is just not how the red day I thought I expected. It trades so much differently, guys. And maybe that's why, like when we go back here, where is it here? So this day. Yeah, like the way it trades sub $1 was just so much more smoother, such a better read for me, in my opinion. The choppiness was more confined. It wasn't like this huge new low a day, new high a day, new low a day, right? It was just much more smooth, and so maybe I took that into account too heavily, because once it got above $1 here, it's just a pain in the butt, right? So yeah, it is what it is. It happens. But again, I did recover most of it, thankfully. Like I said, I made 7K on Riley. I think I made another 5 or 6K on other Gavin Crappers. I think SMFL was one, right? Just to show you the daily chart, right? If we go in here, SMFL, the 21st. Yeah, this was a good one. Made like 5 or 6K there. A lot of Gavin Crops. I mean, this one is typically, I said, a ton, but just a lot of Gavin Crops in general in August that helped me out on most of my days. But yeah, the only thing that at the end of the week on the 23rd was Holo. Holo was a really good one. Let's still get rid of all these here. Let's get rid of Riley. We talked about Riley. Talked about RR, ALZN, APDN, yeah, all that stuff. Okay. Holo. So Holo here ended up being a much bigger win than I expected. In fact, I actually went into this today on the 23rd not expecting to trade it. 4-day run from 30 to 70, but it had this kind of 2-day consolidation in between then. So I didn't love the extension on it. In a perfect world, I wish this ran from like 70 to $1, like one more day higher. However, I think it was the morning of the 23rd, they made their, I think, 20-cent convertible notes available to use. And it's like they have a ton. They have like millions worth. As you can see, they definitely have used them to have it just get crushed right back to the lows. But I forget who brought it to my, I think it was Gratani or Huddy brought that to my attention. I thought to myself, that changes things, right? Because if they're going to use those, it doesn't matter how extended the stock is for my liking. Like it's going to fade if they use it. So that's what I did. I just decided to react to price action in general, regardless of the extension. Did get short on this kind of move towards red-green. It did bounce, but then set a lower high and then faded. I ended up covering it at like 60 and like 59 and 58. Ultimately made like 11 grand. I took 100,000 shares from 70 to like 59, essentially. 11 grand. So look at the trades there. Sorry. This was the VRAX long, right? The gap ups that ended up gapping down huge. Longed it again in after hours to add some more size, and then got offered on. This is me selling VRAX, right? It's pretty much sold at the lows out the open and pre-market, when actually if I had waited, I actually would have caught a good spike back. So super annoying. Again, like I said, I lost more than I should have had I just waited a little bit, but I just wanted out ASAP. Same thing with here, APDN, right? Longed it, only to then sell it. APDN was a little bit worse because for whatever reason, I just thought, oh, maybe it's going to work. Opening green, and I'm like, nope, took a loss again. Smaller there, but like most of it was here. And again, it's so funny. Literally sold the low of the day in pre-market. Like, again, had I just waited, getting anywhere up in here would have been a much, much better of a loss than the 9K down here. I probably would have only lost like 4 or 5 up here, not even, probably like 3. So frustrating. Definitely frustrating when I look back at that. But here's Holo. Like I said, shorted red-green, risk high day, didn't get stopped out, and then just covered into the 60 high 50s. So 11K there, that was a good one. And again, like I said, they literally have done nothing but just faded even lower since then. It makes me feel like I should have swung, 100,000 shares from 70 down to like, let's say I don't take it to 30. Let's just take it to 40, like a 30K win. That would have been really, really cool. But I didn't think they would use the warrants or the convertible notes that extremely. I mean, they just crushed it. So, what else? Last few day trades of the last week here. Not much happened. Unfortunately, I was like up 8K until the last day of the month, and we'll talk about those trades. But like first one is like BLSK. I think actually this whole week was just Gap and Craps. There was like if I didn't trade Gap and Craps as a setup, I don't think I would have traded this week. It was the slowest week of the month for me. Every single P&L you see here is a Gap and Crap. So you get the point. I think the biggest gap or the best Gap and Crap I had this week was like BSLK. We go here. Right, we'll just go back a few days. Yeah, this one got short, I think, somewhere in this chop, and then it did fade beautifully. And actually faded way bigger than I expected, right? It went actually back red, which, again, doesn't commonly happen. Yeah, here it is. Got short on like what looks like that new little breakdown here. Rode through the bounce, and then the more bounces but lower. Quite a big bounce here, but still offered more fading. And before you know it, I'm covering into the red-green, and then I'm covering some, into the close. Locked in 5K on this one. So huge range, but did take smaller size. I shouldn't say smaller, but just small size in general. So yeah, I'm glad about the range of it all. 5K there. But where the week really got me, like I said, the last day here. This was very similar to maybe the 22nd, where, a lot of these red days you see are small, but it usually consists of a loss that's actually bigger than that, and there's some kind of gain that makes it look smaller. Yes, there is some trades here where it's like I just took one loss and that was it. Maybe like the 9th was one. But usually when I take a bunch of losses and there's just no winning trades to make up for it, is when you do get days like this, where I will lose high 4, low 5s, 5-figure kind of days. And so that's exactly what the 30th was for me. I just took 2 losses, one 4K, one a little bit under 8K. So of course, with no cushion anywhere else, like it just looks like a negative 12K day, which sucks. But again, that came from BNRG, right? To the 2 gap and grabbers that squeezed out everybody out on Friday. If you go into it, yeah, got short, I think, into this move, and then squeezed out over high day. Thankfully, avoided any bigger, worse losses. However, cannot say the same for FCUV. FCUV, I took a lot of slippage on this one. It still annoys the crap out of me. But I think I took a loss. Yeah, I got short too early, stopped out over high day when I should have risked wider, because naturally there's all this resistance of pre-market. Like why I was covering here, I don't know why. Reshorted, and then stopped out, but only like partial size, thinking I would get a dip back to like 35, 36. Barely got it, but didn't fill me, and then ripped even higher, and I had to cut over 40 for even a bigger loss than I wanted. So I lost just under 8K. I should have only lost like 5 or 6, but that slippage there on that last push before getting a secondary dip kind of stung, right? If we look at the trades, yeah, here's BRNG, which is so funny. Like it almost reminds me of, what was it, of the ALZN, right? Like ALZN was much more simpler, of like there was just never a significant lower low to get short in, until once it did, it was easy. Whereas BNRG had plenty of choppiness in the meantime, but like anyone who avoided this and then got short anywhere up in here, like again, another great fade. Just unfortunate I was early on this one. Same thing with an FCUV. Again, too early, reshorted it, then stopped out to half size, or not even half, I think like 30, 40%, not enough, obviously. And then had to stop out the rest because I just had no idea how high it's going to go. But again, it sucked a lot of shorts in clearly here, but anyone who was patient enough to get up in here, I mean, I literally round-tripped. More than round-tripped, went below the lows into late day. So really, really frustrating, but it is what it is. So I lost just under 12K, on Friday between those 2 trades alone. Again, knock on wood, or not knock on wood, like play devil's advocate, had I just not traded, which again is silly. I would have taken them no matter what. Could have given me that 6-figure August, but I'm not going to trade, like I said, because of some P&L. I'm going to keep trading. And again, grab and grabs were pretty kind to me this month, so it just so happens the last day was not so kind. It happens. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, my biggest win was the APDN, but unfortunately I gave all that back. The biggest loss was RR because of the choppiness of that first red day. So it resulted in 92K. Best August, like I said. We will see what the rest of the year holds. I can't believe it's literally the last third of the year. We're already into September. This year's feel like it's flown by. And again, typically we'll see how this plays out. I'm just gonna speak on it. September also is never really that great. I mean, it's I guess I'm not looking. It's better than August. Clearly, we have some higher ones. But I remember, if I remember correctly, September's been one where similar to August for me, where it's a bit of a struggle. Right? It's a bit more of a grind. It's not necessarily efficient. I'm having to kind of like really fight for my money. That's at least how I feel when I reflect on those months. But again, still great, right? I'll take a 60K month in September. I'll take a 70K month in September, like previous years. I don't know. Maybe we have a worser month. I have no idea, right? I'm just kind of babbling on here. I have no idea. I just react to price action and react to my P&L, not try to predict it. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your guys' 3-day weekend. I'm filming this on September 1st, but September 2nd is Labor Day, so you guys have off. I certainly will be catching up on my sleep. And yeah, see you guys next time. Make sure to like, subscribe, and peace out. Bye.